Welcome, everybody. We are starting now this webinar about youth goals, promoted by Salto Pi or Salto PI, as you prefer. And we have a lovely team with us that are going to run this webinar and hopefully bring you the best outcomes possible. We have with us Kadri, that she works with Salto PI and will also be in charge of the Q&A and facilitating and moderating some parts of the webinar. We have with us also Georgi, that is also coordinator from Salto PI, and he will present himself also soon a little bit. We have also a part of the team Siri, which will be graphic recording all the webinars, so we have more visuals and everything engaging, as you can see also by the background of Siri. And we're going to have also very nice speakers, Martin, Lauri, and Anina. And besides that, we have also supporting Marilyn and Kelly. And welcome everybody. And this is the team that is going to be working at your service today. And I'll pass then a little bit to Georgi to present a little bit what is Salto PI.
So hello and welcome from Tallinn, Estonia, where Salto PI is based. My name is Georg Feiner. I'm coordinator for youth participation at Salto PI. On the picture here, you can see my three colleagues, and you met them already before. So it's Kadri, Kelly, and Melika, who are here with us today as well. Next slide, please. So our mission here at Salto PI is to improve quality and impact of the EU youth programs. And we are not alone in this mission. We have 7 research centers across Europe, some of them covering regions and some of them covering different topics like us. We develop tools, we develop publications, we organize trainings and events, like, for example, this webinar series here. Here, as I said, we are working on youth participation, but not only. Our other fields of actions are media literacy and promotion and outreach. For youth participation, we coordinate a lot of activities. Next slide, please. One of them is a think tank on youth participation. A second big activity we are working currently on and have been intensely working on in the past months is that we're creating a youth participation strategy for the EU youth programs, and we are going to publish it soon, sometime this summer. And the last thing I want to highlight is a participation resource pool. So this is a new website that we are going to launch and release soon, but it's already there and available for you. So there you can find a lot of resources in our fields of action that we work on. Next one, please. So before I hand back over to Sergio, 2 aspects that we are taking care of at Salto PI, not only throughout this webinar, but also afterwards. We have a recording of this webinar, and this will be uploaded on the participation pool that I mentioned. On the end of this slide, you can see already the link, participationpool.eu. In a few days, you can also see it on YouTube, and there will be a transcript that we will supply. So there will be a better accessibility. Also, those who have troubles listening to us speaking can then read what has been said throughout the webinar. The second aspect are questions. They can be raised here in this Zoom environment, but also outside on Facebook, where we are live streaming currently. So there you can post your Facebooks. We keep track of it, and we will try to answer many of them during these sessions and additional ones after this session. This is how we are going to work today. And now back to Sergio. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Georg. And meanwhile, I would ask Kadri to launch a poll, so we also know a little bit who is participating, and to have also a little bit of information from you. So you would see, if you are on Zoom, you will see that now there's a poll launched and you can answer it. And we're going to give you some minutes while we prepare also other things meanwhile. Just a reminder, like Georg was also saying, this is on Facebook streaming live, so please also share the link with your friends so more people can also watch it live. And for the ones that are attending from Zoom that registered before, also to inform that this is being recording and you're going to receive a record and a transcript of the chat up to 2 weeks after the webinar. So keep attention to your inbox soon. So while the poll is being launched, as I said, we have also 3 key speakers today. One of them is Martin. And Martin will talk a little bit about how youth goals are disseminated and a bit also about this process of the youth goals. While Lori and Anina will talk a little bit more about the Finnish also National Agency and the Finnish reality. And I will present them a little bit more in advance later on. So now I would pass to Martin. Please present a little bit more about yourself and what is the topic of your speech.
Hello, everyone from Vienna. I'm Martin. I work at the Austrian National Youth Council, and I've been invited to talk a little bit about the youth goals dissemination process. I've been part of the team that organized the EU Youth Conference in Vienna in 2018, and I'm coordinating the youth dialogue process in Austria. And very much thanks to Satu P for organizing this series. Sergio, should I just continue or do
you... Yes, Martin.
Yeah, perfect.
Go on. Thank you so much for your presentation. Feel free to go on.
So basically, I can remember very well when the youth goals were officially adopted in 2018. I was just at home in Vienna, and my former colleague Georg called me. Georg, who now works at Satu P. But at the time, he was at the EU Youth Conference in Bulgaria for the Austrian National Youth Council. So he called me and said, hey, the youth goals are almost finished. We're writing just the last bits of the text. Do you think there's any chance that we can quickly put up a website for the youth goals so that people can access them tomorrow? And we have thought about a lot of things in advance. There were first visualizations, there were templates, there were PowerPoint presentations, there were like super quality in-depth reports from the youth researchers, but we had completely forgotten about the website. So basically I took some online homepage tutorials, downloaded some half-finished WordPress templates, added some weird code bits, and it ended up to be one of the probably most ugliest websites in history. But it had all the relevant information that we needed within a few hours. And so we could distribute the information to all the delegates. So I will just quickly go a step back. So what are the youth goals in theory? The youth goals are the result of a European-wide participatory process, the so-called EU Youth Dialogue, in which around 50,000 young people in Europe took part. The 11 youth goals summarize the issues affecting young people in Europe and the political priorities that are important to them. The youth goals point out the areas in which change must still happen so that young people can live to their full potentials. The youth goals are so-called vision for Europe's youth. And of course, there's the theory to it, but what are the youth goals in actions? Some would say they're like a positive Trojan horse because they come across as very simple and colorful. I've probably seen the visualization and we will share them with you afterwards. And they have names like moving rural youth forward. I mean, do you know anyone who would say you shouldn't support rural youth at any level? And the second level, there is a vision in case of youth goal 6. It is create conditions which enable young people to fulfill their potential in rural areas. On the next level, there is a short description of the problem and the issues young people have articulated in the participation process regarding that topic. But then there are very tangible and future-oriented sub-goals, which are very nice to use and they're like very precise. So the youth goals are an intersectional tool for shaping and measuring public policies. So I just go a quick step back even further. The idea for the Youth Goals was born during the conference on the future EU youth strategy at the European Youth Week in 2017. There is a lot more to say about what participatory measures it took to involve young people in the process, as well as the policy process behind it. But for now, I would like to concentrate more on the dissemination process and how we tried to make the Youth Goals visible to as many people as possible. I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding policy or participatory processes later, or drop me an email. For some of it, Geert from Salto.pi would be probably the better person to speak to anyways, because he was very much involved in the whole process. Before going to the dissemination process, I just want to mention the time frame once more, because I will probably jump back forth. The participation process, where around 50,000 young people all over Europe shared their ideas, took place between October 2017 and March 2018, so it was half a year. The participation process included an online consultation guided by youth researchers, focus groups in youth organizations and in open youth work, and participation projects run by young people, media projects, and much more. Then there was the youth conference in Bulgaria in April 2018, where the youth delegates had agreed on the Youth Goals, and the dissemination process started, which I will mainly talk about today. But there was also a huge policy process which was about renegotiating the Youth Goals into the new EU youth strategy. And this process took mainly place around the EU Youth Conference in Vienna in September 2018. So when I talk about how to make the Youth Goals visible, how to disseminate the Youth Goals, I talk about my very personal experience and some centralized ideas we had to disseminate the Youth Goals. I think this process, which was done by the Austrian presidency, was super important. So, for example, we just have one set of icons and not 20 different sets of icons, but it's just a small piece in the whole progress. The main reason why Youth Goals are successful and visible is because young people all over Europe are sharing them, using them, and taking care of them. So overall, there were 3 different keyways that we used to make the Youth Goals visible. It was visualization online and offline, support of the use of different language versions, and a sweet giveaway. One of the first steps besides the website was that the youth delegates made a short video in Sofia presenting the Youth Goals. And after that, the next step was to push the visualizations for the Youth Goals. This task was taken over especially by the Austrian National Erasmus Plus Agency for Youth in Austria. It's Interkulturelles Zentrum, the Austrian National Youth Council in cooperation with the Ministry of Youth in Austria, because Austria had taken over the presidency of the EU. So the plan was to present the new visualizations at the European Youth Conference in Austria. The icons were, of course, the central point, because it's the way how we communicate the Youth Goals in a visual way. So we got in contact with several graphic designers. The big problem was to design something as simple as possible, at the same time timeless, not too sterile, but not too childish, and also unique. This is kind of a weird thing to ask from somebody. And so it took quite a lot of loops until we were happy with it. We also tested it in our environment. It became a bit messy because the more people are involved, the more difficult it gets, of course. But in the end, we were super happy. And we were especially happy that we did not just commission the set of icons, but we also commissioned the brand manual, how to use the icons and especially how not to use them. This may sound very obvious, but we quickly saw how people may misuse them, color change them, crop them, and so forth. And it was super important for us that the Youth Goals work in different sizes. So for example, we had printed out the Youth Goals on big A1 posters, but at the same time, we wanted them to also work as a set of icons on A6 postcards. And this, of course, is also for the graphic designer a very important task to know before. Furthermore, templates were made available with translations of the use goals in different language versions. And we asked like different youth councils and national agencies to provide the translations. And currently the use goals are available for download in 16 different language versions. So in preparation for the EU Youth Conference, we had printed out the use goals individually on posters, but also on various sizes, on cards and banners, because we wanted to have the use goals extremely present at the conference, and we're still using that way to communicate. At every event we're having at the national level, we're trying to have the use goals as everywhere as possible. And we also printed for the EU Youth Conference in Vienna, we printed large postcards with use goals on, where the ministers responsible for youth in the EU member states wrote messages together with the youth delegates on the EU Youth Conference. And the photos with the youth goals, with the posters of the youth goals, were shared by the ministers on their social media channels. So we created quite a buzz in the policy area as well. Overall, I would say we had a lot of different people with different professional and educational backgrounds in the team for the EU Youth Conference and for planning this whole dissemination process. And none of us had any clue about marketing. Every marketing agency would have suggested different ways to spread the youth goals, and I don't think we made it particularly well or particularly bad. But I think we always tried to treat the youth goals very carefully and to have respect for the fact that many young people from all over Europe participated in it. And in hindsight, I think it was the best idea to print the youth goals on small chocolates. This is the sweet treat I was referring before. So some of you have probably eaten them or at least seen them on some social media posts. We had an incredible amount of posts with the little chocolates after the conference in the European youth policy bubble. And yes, this exists. And not only among the young people and the delegates, the chocolates were an absolute winner, especially among the political representatives and ministers who attended the conference on the last day. So for example, the Minister for Family and Youth from Austria told us even months later which youth goal was her favorite chocolate type. In Austria, the youth goals are part of the governmental agreement since 2019, and the youth goals are an integral part of the national youth strategy. Every ministry in Austria has defined a youth goals they would like to work on. It was certainly not the chocolate that led to this, but I think it might have helped. Thanks for now.
Thank you so much, Martin. And there was already some comments also on chat saying that, yeah, the icons for youth goals are very well done. So congratulations with that. And thank you for your exposition about, yeah, the process of youth goals. For sure, it took some time and it was not an easy process, but I think it's more clear now. Meanwhile, as you remember, we launched the poll before, so now we can maybe launch the results. Just to understand a little bit what region you are coming from and what is your professional role. And we have the big majority, 72% coming from European Union, and then 90% coming from other European countries. We have 1% from Africa, 5% from Asia, and 3% from elsewhere. While the main roles, so now for the participants attending this webinar, mainly they are youth workers and trainers, 48%. 11% are students, 5% youth researchers, the same as policymakers, 5%. Staff of NA, 11%, good also to have them on board. Member of partner organizations, 5%, and others, 16%. Thank you so much for answering on our poll. And please keep also your questions on the Q&A box, while the chat is also to discuss a little bit further other things. When you are posting your questions on the Q&A box, please keep them short and clear, so that it is also easier to answer. And we keep reminding also that the ones that we cannot answer during this webinar will be answered after the webinar in a written format. So I would say that we are also ready to know and engage a little bit more with the participants. So I would suggest that we can launch now another poll. since we already had the results of this one, will be a little bit more about youth goals. So to understand also how much do you know about youth goals, and now of course with this speech from Martin, for sure you know a little bit more, but the poll will be open for a while. Meanwhile, then we're going to pass now to other key speakers, and we have Martin and Anina with us. So please present also yourselves a little bit and let us know also what you're going to talk about it.
Hello everyone, so my name is Annina Kurki and I'm coming from Finnish National Agency for Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Corps. And I'm here to tell you a bit about the background, how we actually decided to disseminate the youth goals in Finland. And first of all, I want to tell that the whole process was part of the Europe Goes local project which is going on. And I think we had a couple of main reasons why we actually decided to take quite a big and strong role on this. And I think the one is that if you think the location of our country, Finland, we are a bit up here, quite often a bit edge of Europe, I would say, and we need to constantly remind ourselves that European issues are also our issues. So I think the youth goals were quite good a tool for that. Then the other reason why we think the youth goals were important was that we have a very strong own youth policy in Finland and a very strong profession and established profession of youth workers. So we have a different kind of national youth policy papers in Finland. So it was clear that we need to have some extra boost if we want to have European youth goals also in our realities. So what we decided to do in our NA, we started to think that who should we actually target the youth goals? And we decided to go for the professionals, so the youth workers. And then we were thinking that how we can underline the message, like how we can actually get the clear and good message. So we had a few words in our heads. One was creativity and the other one was inspirational. So we wanted to have something creative and inspirational for professional youth workers, people who are working with the young people. And then we were starting to think that who were the best ones to deliver the message. And okay, it wasn't that unique solution. It was the same as Martin had in Austria and with the whole dialogue thing. So we did actually the same thing, that we choose the best messengers to be the young people. So that's what we had in our hands. We had the target group, we had the reasons that why we need to do it, and then we had the idea of having something creative and inspirational. And then we were also thinking that we have to have a tool which is easy to run, that we as the NA people can run it easily, but also the professional youth workers can just have it and run it easily. So then we actually started to find a partner, because we noticed that okay, it's not we're not gonna able to do it by ourselves, and we find very nice partner in the city of Lahti and Youth Services. And actually I'm very happy to have Lauri here with me, because Lauri will present a bit more like what they actually did and how they did it. And it was at the same time a pilot project between a public body as we as a NA and then the municipality youth workers, and also dialogue with the young people. So it was in many ways unique way of working, and I'm happy that Lauri can actually present the results, and I will later tell you how we have actually used the tool. So I will pass the floor to you, Lauri, now.
Thank you, and hello everybody. I hope you can hear my voice properly. So yes, I will tell you a few things about how the concept that we made in drama workshop was made and how it was put together. And perhaps I could share you some ideas that our youngsters had after they did this whole process. So like Anina said, I work for the youth department, youth services in Lahti city. And there I work as a working coach in a drama workshop. And we had 12 unemployed youngsters in a 5 months period working with this project with Annina and the Finnish NA. And we started this project in February 2019. And we basically worked with this project the whole 5 months period with our youngsters. And our youngsters are usually, maybe you could say, young people with fewer opportunities. So our main goal in drama workshop is to empower these people socially, maybe build up more their self-esteem, and like to try to participate them as much as possible in each and every project that we are doing. And so we did with this one too. So when we started the project, we tried to give our youngsters as much as space as possible to creating this new thing, this new concept, how to introduce this new youth strategy to the youth workers here in Finland. We had also with me 2 drama coaches working on this project, my colleagues Auli Vallenius and Antoni Kosonen. And we had a very good extra hand also. We had a local artist and a designer called Laura Mellanen working with us. So we got this visual professional also with us doing this whole thing. So, and we started the whole thing with reading the youth strategy from cover to cover. So we really had to know what was it all about. And we also pointed out, which Martin was talking about, these 11 youth goals. We pointed out them, and our youngsters thought that was the essential thing in the whole youth strategy, these youth goals or these things, and we started to work with them. So, and after we had this, we had these 11 goals, we started to think that how did we feel about them? What was our youngsters' thoughts and feelings about them? What was most important to them? Were they relevant? And as 50,000 other European youngsters felt that they were the key things, our youngsters, these 12 youngsters, felt that okay, these are really good goals. These are real. These are important things. So that was very, very nice that to start with the whole process when there was so much in common with the goals, and the thoughts were in the same place. And we had opportunity to interview some local youth workers also here in Lahti. And because the audience of this concept would be youth workers here in Finland, so we wanted to ask them how they felt also about these youth goals, and what did they think was important in their everyday work that they do. And I think this was very interesting that also the youth workers saw these 11 goals very, very important and very good. And so we had a lot of good ground to start to build up this concept that we made. So, and there we were. We had a lot of ideas of our own, and we had interviewed the youth workers. So we had to start to put the concept together. And we had this crazy idea at first that we threw around like 100 ideas of what would the concept be like. So what would be most interesting way to present this new youth strategy to the youth workers? And from those 100 ideas, we collected the final version of this how we did it. And I could share now a few slides with you, so I can show you a bit what it's the concept about.
Yeah, so Siri can stop sharing a bit, and now we can pass to your presentation.
And don't worry, I have only two of these. So yeah, so basically I can show you this kind of a little teaser. Our concept holds 3 parts. And the first part is that we wanted to also, like Martin was talking about the posters, we also wanted to visualize these 11 youth goals, because these posters, we felt that it's very very handy to, you know, to hide a little message about how we felt about them and what was important in our youngsters' minds. So, and there was this thing that we hope that if somebody who participates in this concept, who can also watch, you know, these posters and maybe start to think themselves like, ah, this is a very interesting poster, yes. And what do I see in this poster? So we thought this poster would be a little provocative in a way, but also with respect. So this was with how our youngsters felt about them. And the second part was that we came out some exercises that would help participants to test how the youth values work in their own lives, or if the youth workers would like to investigate how the youth values and youth goals are work in the organizational level also. So we came up with a couple of easy exercises that anyone could do if they would like to. And third, I can show you the other slide, was that we created a participating game. And you can see here, we created 5 fictional EU citizens, like you can see. And these characters kind of bring a new perspective to be involved with the youth goals, because in drama it is very important that that people who participate into something, they just don't, you know, like watch and listen. They become more closer to the topics when they, you know, comes face to face with the youth goals. And in this game that we made, these 5 characters, you know, like they're fictional, but they really kind of represent our young people's minds, dreams, hopes, you know, what are they afraid of, what they do want to know. And every character has a couple of EU values with them, you know, like when they go to this game, they will have to, you know, try to solve things in their lives throughout the EU values that each character had. And I think I could talk more about this game, but we don't have much time to this. So all of this material about the posters, about the exercises, and about this game can be found in Finnish National Agency for Education's website. So if you are interested, you can visit there. Maybe Kadri is putting some link to the chat, and so you can go and check them out if you want. And to Siri, I will end my presentation now. Yes, and few words to the end of my talk is that I really think that by making this project, our youngsters maybe became more closer to EU some way, because in the beginning of the process, I think some of them had this idea that, okay, like Anina was saying, that, okay, EU is just this big organization in there, and I don't know how it concerns my own life, you know, what it can bring to me. And by doing this and being involved with this process, I really think that our youngsters became more aware of the opportunities that EU could bring to young people. For example, the European Solidarity course and the Erasmus Plus, which Anina was talking about. And I really think that this somehow was an kind of an eye-opener for our youngsters too, you know, to see that, okay, EU is not just some faceless organization, but it is like we all are EU citizens, and we all have some kind of opportunities that the organization brings to us. So I think that was very nice to know. And to the end, I'd like to say that even though our youngsters aren't here today, I'd really like to still send some. I don't know how the internet connection works, but maybe through that connection, I'd like to send a big thank you for them, because they gave so much effort and so much their own thoughts to this concept that it became so interesting and maybe that creative that Anina was talking about. So huge thank you for them for making this happen. Yeah.
Yes, Lauri, I want to add something.
Yes,
like I really feel the same way, and I think it's amazing that if I think that who are really the experts in Finland knowing about the youth goals and the strategy, they are those young people who actually made it. So it makes me still laugh inside. I think it's a very, very good idea that they kind of own them, and they were the first one who took them and handled them and delivered something amazing. So I'm also happy that they are the experts really about it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori and Anina, for your practical example of how you use youth goals. So we can review a little bit what happened. So basically, Martin was explaining a little bit how this process was about building up the youth goals. 50,000 people were participating on it, and it was a kind of a Trojan horse. And thanks to the work of Siri in graphic recording, we can also have a visual representation about how it was and how the process ended up with these 11 youth goals. While on the side of Anina and Martin, we had an overview how to put in practice these youth goals and how they developed a tool that young people and youth workers can use it to raise awareness about youth goals, but also to promote it and to implement them in a work and in real life. So thank you so much for all our speakers. Just a reminder that the Q&A, we are answering as much as possible to your questions. Some of them will also be answered in the end of this webinar. We're going to have a special part on this webinar just for Q&A, so don't miss it. If your question is not answered meanwhile by written format on the Q&A box, it means that probably it will be answered then in the end by the speakers and other panelists. Having that in account, also the chat is very active. Good to see a lot of people commenting. Feel free to keep using it. And also Kadri from our team, she's posting as much as possible the links that people are requesting also regarding the work that Finnish National Agency is doing, regarding also where we can find more information about the youth goals. So keep paying attention to the chat, and for sure you're gonna get more. And once again, we remind that the ones that were signed in for this webinar will receive also a transcript in about 2 weeks about everything that was on the chat. So all the links that are shared there, you're also gonna get them. I will invite now the 3 main speakers to come back a little bit and let's discuss a little bit your presentations, but also trying to direct in one specific direction, which is mainly what are the main learning outcomes from a promotional point of view that you gain or that you would like to share now with your process. One with the process of building the youth goals, and the other, for example, with the process of creating a tool and using these youth goals as a tool. So Martin, Anina, and Lauri, please feel free to share your views.
I can start if it's okay. So I promise to come back like the reasons and how we have actually used the tool. So of course there is a bit trick behind this, and when we ask Lauri's group to make the tool, we also have an idea that how we as a NA can use it when we promote the European youth programs. Obviously that's the core job of us. So when you go and check the game, because it's available for everyone, just remember to put the copyright to the right place. So when you go and see it, you can quite quickly find out that it's actually also a very nice tool for promoting the European youth programs, Erasmus Plus, Youth in Action, and European Solidarity Corps. So we kind of put a bit trick on the tool that it kind of reflects also the programs. So that was one thing, that you can use really the youth goals quite many ways, like directly promote the programs. But then the feedback that we have got is that those stakeholders and NGOs who would like to work more in a European frame, and sometimes they need to be convincing to their organizations and ask permission to work. So I think the youth goals the things that are in there gives a good reasons to work in a frame of a European frame. So I think we have succeeded at that point when the youth workers knows about those European topics, and they can actually talk to their NGOs and bosses that, okay, this is the reason why we should actually work. So it works in quite many ways, in promotional way. Like, I think the most important thing is that you need to know why it is important to promote them, like what it is to you and your NGO or your background, and then I think it's quite easy to find a way to work with them.
I would completely agree, and I've been working before also in the structured dialogue, which was the program before the EU Youth Dialogue, this participation program. And of course, to learn the name structured dialogue is super complicated, and a lot of young people would not think it's a good way to participate. And since we have the youth goals, it also got much easier for the work we're doing to communicate about European topics. And as well, what Laurie said before, that the European Union is not a faceless organization, that we're all facing same difficulties, issues, but also having maybe same opportunities. It got much more easier to communicate about that with the youth goals. And we've also seen really nice Erasmus Plus funded projects in Austria, for example, one in the Open Youth Network, where young people with fewer opportunities made some hip-hop songs with the youth goals and using them. And it was really hard before to have like a tool to, I mean, of course, there had been many different ways to communicate before, which worked, but also what we heard from youth workers in Austria, that the youth goals are a very nice tool for them and for all of us to communicate about European problems and issues and opportunities.
Thank you, Martin. I don't know, Laurie, if you want to add something.
I think you, Martin and Annina, were talking so intelligently, so I was out of my league here. So no, thank you, sir.
Well, but for sure, you also had some learning points also with this development of this tool and involving artists and young people.
Yeah, and maybe that was the one point. Thank you for saying that out loud. That one thing we have been doing after, because we all also work now with another 12 unemployed youngsters. So we use this concept again. You know, we ask our youngsters to get to know it, and we watch the posters together, and then we play the game together. So I think it's kind of a tool for that anyone can use if they want in their own daily work to get to know about these youth goals. So it works also with youngsters, not just the youth workers. So I think that's some good thing to mention, maybe.
Yeah, I have also one thing what I would like to share with you is that if you check the Finnish materials, or whoever has done their own material from the youth goals, I think the national context really affects on how they are. And it's not that easy to transform them to the other surroundings, and it's especially when you're working with the images. So like those which we think are very easy to understand, and it makes sense for the people who lives in Finland and like know the shape of the Finnish country by heart. They understand what's behind the images, but then if you look, or someone who doesn't really maybe know so well our society, it might be a bit confusing. So I just what I want to say is that when you are working with the images, they are quite often connected to the realities about the people who has created them. So good to be in mind with this issue.
That is very true. That is very true. And we also have some audio clips where our youngsters are reading these stories of the characters, what they think. So if you go and listen to them, they have also this, I think, some kind of even though they're read in English and in Swedish, if you are from there. But they have also this kind of a very national kind of how Finnish youngsters think about things. So that may be confusing if you're trying to play it in your own home country, but maybe you could give it a try. I don't know. But the posters, I totally agree with Annina, because there is one poster with Finnish map on it. So maybe it tells us Finns more than it tells maybe to somebody else.
That's very good points to what you are sharing, because then it seems that you are really trying to connect with the local reality and local communities. So as you are saying, this is very much in line with how Finnish young people will act. And the characters, if I understood correctly, also how they are speaking, it's also related with the Finnish language and Finnish understanding. All these things that you are saying, I suppose, that are also all available in the website, the Finnish version, the Swedish version, but also the English version, right?
Yes, they should be there. Maybe some parts are still missing. We are still doing them, but yes, the basic things are there. Also instructions and guidebook, how you can actually run the exercise and so on. And it's really for everyone. We just hope that when you use them and so on, then please remember to mark who has actually done it. But it's for everyone freely to use. Definitely, if you feel that there is something for you, then definitely yes. And I think the next challenge is that how you go actually beyond the youth field like that. I think this is the next step for us. Like now we have started to disseminate it to the youth field, and yes, there is still things to do there, but I think the next step is to think beyond the youth field and think that how we can actually deliver them to the public places and make it more a conversation with among other citizens than the youth workers and so on. So I think this is the next plan, and maybe we will continue with Lauri and Auli and the people there and see the next steps, but it's inspiring us in many ways still.
That's very good. So if I understand correctly, also what you're saying is just by the fact that you did this tool and developed this project now gives you more motivation to go on, to keep going, and to try to spread as much as possible this message. So that's also a very good tip for the audience, to at least start something and with that gain motivation. Thank you very much for your tips and tricks. I would ask you now also a little bit, and also maybe going back to Martin, if you wish to start, a little bit about do's and don'ts. What you recommend that people will do, and what you say, please really don't do this because this is not a good way to use youth goals or not a good way to promote them.
I think, I mean, the biggest do is use them. I think we try to, or we're really trying to use them in our National Youth Council, really at every possibility that we get, and we always have them present. We always present them when we have public events, but also when we have political events where we talk to ministers, etc. We always bring them with us and present them. And
can I just interrupt you a little bit? Can you explain a little bit more how you come with the youth goals and how you present them? You were saying that I don't know, I'm imagining maybe a PowerPoint presentation, or you have some banner, or you try to address in all the conversations you have, say practical things that how to promote even more the youth.
Yeah, sure. For example, at the conference, and we now, after the European Youth Conference, we are now having national youth conferences every year where people from all over Austria come together and meet political decision makers. And we have the youth goals present at every point of this event. Like if you come to that event, you see a big banner of the youth goals. We have posters everywhere. We have postcards everywhere. And I'm super jealous now because we also have like kind of youth goals game cards, but they are not as much as they are not as by anyways as cool as the ones from Lauri. And I think we have to redo them at some point, but this is also what we have. Like we printed the youth goals on small game cards, and we bring them to when we visit some ministries, or when we talk to any political decision makers, we bring those game cards with us and we leave them there so people can have a look at them. They fit into every pocket. can bring them with them. And as I said before, unfortunately, the chocolates are over now, but this, of course, was brilliant to have them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good tip. If I understood correctly, the cards are also like a kind of business cards, and then people can take it, and maybe the chocolates will come back one day. So okay, we have already one do to really use as much as possible and include on your conversations, and with the promotional material, the youth goals. What about the don't?
I mean, I think it would be also like a point that Laurie and Anina mentioned before, and it's not a don't, but it's a be careful about it. It's about translating use goals. When you use them, you always have to bear in mind how to translate them on the level, like on a regional level, on a national level, and you always have to be very careful, like. Or not to be careful, but I think it's a lot of work to be done by youth workers, by anybody who is using them on a regional level, that you like somehow develop them for the regional and local reality of young people, to use them there.
Mm-hmm. So to be careful, just adapting and translating.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Martin. And from Nina and Laurie, something that you really recommend people to do?
I would recommend just dive in and check what there is for you. And at the same time, it goes to the don't do, is that don't decide who would be interested on them. Like, don't make decision before trying out with the different target groups, different type of people coming from different situations and so on. So I guess that's something that I would like to think, that the youth goals and what's in it and how inspirational it can be, it's for everyone. So I think the don't do is that decide that, okay, it's not for them, it's only for them, like test it. I think that's quite philosophical idea.
But I think you said it well, like it is like that. I totally agree. So like that these things are for everybody. I still think, like, yeah, you can decide who is involved and who isn't. So nicely said, Amina.
So not to have a prejudice in our mind saying, no, this will not fit with this target group, but really to try to risk it and to share it as much as possible and see the outcomes. Great. Any other small tip or trick that you would like to share with us before we also moving on to the next topics? If not, then I will ask you the question. What was the biggest trouble or challenge that you had in transferring to a broader level these youth goals?
Was it the question for me? Sorry, my
It can be for any of the three.
Oh, for anyone. Okay,
yeah.
So because my internet line did a little.
No problem. Yeah, I think we are losing a bit Laurie. So maybe Martin, go.
I can start. I think it in the beginning it was really like there was this idea of youth goals that nobody really knew what it could be, and I mean there was the participation process that nobody knew how it will end. And at the same time, at the national level, we kind of tried to already prepare national decision makers that there is something coming, and they were really, they thought it's a good idea, but they were, okay, we're not sure what this will be. And I think it took a lot of work, especially also a lot of work by Georg, to convince people that this is really something that they should use. And I think it's sometimes this process is really frustrating, but if you talk about 20 times about it, at the 21st time, sometimes it works. And in our case, it worked.
Good, thank you. Maybe Laurie is back to your internet.
I heard Martin's answer, but I didn't hear the question, sorry.
No, it was what I was said before, that only if you find some troubles in transferring this to a broader level, to transferring the youth goals. And Nina already said a little bit that now you are trying to reach also other target groups. but do you find any challenge or something trouble that it's also important to mention?
I don't know if it's important to mention, but I think we are still quite in an early phase. The tool has been ready more or less half a year or so on. So we have just started to use it and step by step getting some feedback from the field. So I don't know if you have so much yet to tell that that how it's going and so on. But yeah, I think it's always important to kind of like know why you do it, like why you are promoting something and why you are using something. I think this is the question that we also need to ask after time a bit, like, okay, and especially if you have your own national youth policies as well, and then find the link between those. It's pretty much they goes hand to hand, but still I think this is the one question it's good to answer again and again. But I will tell you later when we are a bit further with this and have also go beyond the youth field, so then we can come back in a year or something and see how it is.
Sounds good. Maybe in 1 year we make another webinar and we check upon that.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. Also including what Martin was saying, we saw that also on the chat, a person is also saying that the images and chocolates are great. They're also going to try to use pasta to teach children in elementary schools what are the youth goals. So from what I see and from what you share with us, it's also a matter of being creative and trying different things. For now, we're going to close a little bit this discussion, and thank you so much for your tips and tricks. That Siri was also graphic recording very well, and then we're going to have also an overview. I would say that we launched a poll some time ago, and now maybe it's time to see the results. We asked you, the people that are attending, are you familiar with the youth goals before? And we had 38% saying that they have some knowledge and try to support them. Only 18% said that yes, and they actively follow them. And then we have 28% that actually says that they heard about it, but don't have much knowledge. So I hope it's improving now with this webinar. And we have also 17% of people that said, no, it's first time they hear about it then. So it's also very interesting to understand how youth goals are being promoted and how people are aware of them or not, and also young people. And now for the next block, we're going to also invite some people that are attending that also they become now panelists, and they'll join our panel. And also with the key speakers, please don't leave. We also want you to be on it. And so I will invite 3 attendees called Monique Van Dam, Mila Lukic, and Adriano Barbaros to join our panel and to discuss a little bit further the youth goals and also share a little bit their point of view and perspective according to their experience. So welcome.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. So Monique, maybe we start a little bit with you. If I understand correctly, you are a founder and entrepreneur of One World Citizens, an international community of youngsters, and that help share ideas and change for helping each other, and also especially with local projects and startups. So tell us a little bit about you, and also regarding your experience, how you have been supporting local projects or startups, and how do you think that youth goals can bring something to the local youth projects?
Okay, thank you, Sergio, for introducing me in this good way. And yeah, nice to meet you all from different countries. I'm happy to share with you and to be in this meeting. And yeah, to say something about how can we bring the youth goals to local level. The first best action we see is to do it with youngsters, to bring them in the lead, to take action on the goals themselves. And we did it from 2015 with the global goals at first, with youngsters from 14 countries, also outside Europe, from Nepal, Rwanda, Kenya, and Kurdistan, Iraq, to figure out how can we make these goals happen locally. And the good thing also that we found out there's a common need in this process of taking action yourself. And it's about the education you need about the topics of the goals. And the second thing is the empowerment and entrepreneurial skills you need to bring your idea for change into action, into a project or startup. And this is very interesting because when we facilitate youngsters, we found out they can also create this education together, even online, outside school. So there's a lot to win when you facilitate youngsters and take them in the, give them the lead in this process of thinking, what do we need to reach the goals? How can we get there? And how can we help each other by online education and providing each other the skills for entrepreneurship and empowerment?
Thank you so much for sharing your experience, and don't leave. We are going to have more questions. We'll just go one by one, and then maybe now I will pass a bit to Adrian. Adrian, if I understood correctly, also you are part of the organizing bureau of European School Student Unions and a board member of that organization. And then I would like to ask you more, because if I understood correctly, you come also from the point of view of students and schools. So, and you work with school students unions in Romania. So what do you think school student participation can benefit from the youth goals?
Okay, hello everyone. I'm more than happy to be here with you today. I would say that the most beneficial thing that school students could take out of the youth goals is the advocacy dimension. I believe that youth goals do have a power, can influence decisions, and allow young people in a way or another to be represented. So the youth goals are in fact a foundation which we utilize in different contexts in order to make our voice to be heard. I would say one of the priorities of the school student unions has always been fighting for the rights. I would like to give some examples from practice on how the youth goals could help young people and how youth goals help young people in order to make that the rights that I was telling you about have been assured. So I would try to present this in a 3 dimensions, starting from the grassroots, then national, and then finally the European level. Starting from the grassroots, let's say that we are in a school at the grassroots where is there no wheelchair access, even though that the law, the law from that country says that there has to be one. What would normally a school student union, I mean the school student union from that school would do is to go to the principal and discuss with this person about that law. What would weigh more and what would make this process a bit smoother, I would say, a bit more effective, is that the youth goal and also the youth goals will be presented. So this will enhance their capacity of having a result, of solving a problem, because it's not just one country that has a law, but there's let's say a European dimension in all this process. To also give you an example from the national level, let's say now that we are at the level of the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Education wants to change the national education system, and then they don't have the meetings with school students, don't want to have necessarily the voice of school students in all those processes and in the committees. In this case, what the union that works on the national level could do is to address the ministry and present everything, as I said, into an international perspective. We are the young people of the European Union, the school students of the European Union, and we have some rights. And for example, you as a new member state have to have the responsibility to hear our voice, to make sure that the youth goals are respected. So we can come from this idea that it's not just only one state that has the youth goals, but it's the whole European Union that has the same goals, and you as a member state and you as a ministry would be very important for you to also try to apply the youth goals. When it comes to the EU level, the last one, I would like to point out the fact that OBESU is strongly working with the youth goals, and our advocacy endeavors are more effective when we use the youth goals, and those help us to have like a context in which our demands are not just our demands, but more demands of the whole youth community of the European Union. And I think that some conclusions have to be drawn, And from my side, I would like to highlight the following. Young people and school students need to have the youth goals. It's an imperative that civil society and an educational system should make come true. So we as OBESU, we have to promote the youth goals. And also I think this is like the responsibility of member states to promote the youth goals. Also, youth goals help and enhance the advocacy work we're doing. So as I said, we have the youth goals, and this help us in each meeting we have with representatives of commission or representatives of Ministry of Education. At the same time, I think like the final conclusion I would like to say is that the youth goals lay the foundation for a more youth-oriented society. And I think by saying this, I think that the youth goals have the responsibility to make sure that the young people are the core of this, are at the core of the society.
Thank you so much, Adrian, for your contribution and sharing a bit of your experience on the school level and student level, and also in Romania. I would pass now to Mila. And Mila, if I understood correctly, it's part of the ARCA Foundation, and 70 years already working on the various national agencies with the National Youth Council of Serbia, and also member of the Advisory Council on Youth of the Council of Europe. And if I understood correctly, you are also contributed to the creation of the youth goals themselves. So my question will be, since you have been involved as a youth representative from Serbia in the development of the youth goals, then how did you make them visible in Serbia?
Yes, thank you so much, Sergio. And thank you, Salto, for actually inviting me to share my experience. Because whenever I work with young people and whenever I implement different youth projects, youth goals and the structured dialogue, now the EU Youth Dialogue, is something I always refer to as one of the biggest and most diverse experiences that I have ever had as a youth worker and a youth advocate. During my mandate in the National Youth Council of Serbia, I was a representative to the structured dialogue, the EU Youth Dialogue process, where I have had the opportunity to directly contribute as a young person, as a representative of youth in Serbia, to the creation of the EU Youth Goals, to the creation of the new EU Youth Strategy, and so on and so forth. So it was very nice to have this opportunity to voice not only my ideas, but the ideas of the young people in Serbia. So after the process was done and after we have created the EU Youth Goals, the question was how to put this from the European level onto the national and even local level in Serbia. So whatever we did in the National Youth Council was to include and try to promote as much as possible the youth goals within our activities, within our projects, and on every single communication channel that we have had, being social media or something else. So what we did as well, we implemented this project called the Young People's Voice in Democratic Processes, that actually focused on young people's participation in decision making, basically the structured dialogue itself. And we used the EU Youth Goals as a powerful tool to not only inform the young people on what their rights and what their opportunities are, but also to build their capacities to voice their problems, their concerns, their ideas to the local decision makers. We managed, over the course of 2 years, we managed to involve around 10 municipalities throughout the country, where we gave the training, so building capacity programs, not only to young people, but also to local decision makers, because what we thought of the EU Youth Goals is that not only young people matter, but we need local decision makers, we need national decision makers in order for youth goals to be actually implemented, either in policies or in different activities on various governance levels. So we did that, and there was also a mandatory follow-up activities. So our participants had the opportunity to design their own activities related to EU Youth Goals that they implemented on the local level. And they were very diverse in a sense of creativity, in a sense of target groups, in a sense of the scope of the follow-up activities. So it was very nice to see how we managed to disseminate the EU Youth Goals, something that was created with, as Martin said, 50,000 young people who were consulted about it, that was disseminated even on the local level, on the smaller level in my country. Another thing, actually an example that I wanted to briefly mention, as you said, I'm a representative now of Foundation ARCA, and we are already carrying out one Erasmus Plus Key Action 3 project. Those are the projects that are particularly dedicated to spreading the EU strategy, the EU youth goals, and allowing young people and giving them capacities to participate in decision making. So ever since Serbia became a program country of the Erasmus Plus program last year in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, because it seems such a long time now ago, we managed to apply for this project with the idea to spread the word about the EU youth goals and to spread the information about the EU strategy, to teach young people that even though it is called the EU strategy and Serbia is not a member state of the European Union, we still have a say in it, and we can still use such as EU goals. Currently, we're in the process of implementing the project called Youth Up Democracy, and with this project, we have the idea to train around 30 young people from from 6 different municipalities in Serbia, but also their local decision makers. So we can bring them together, discuss how are those applicable in their local context, in their local communities, and then come up with the ideas of what to do next. We are focused with this particular project, we're focused on various EU youth goals, idea much broader throughout our activities.
Thank you so much, Mila. I hope everything was clear. I think there was a little bit of internet connection, but overall it was pretty clear, everything. And thank you for your involvement and also your sharing your experience. And just a reminder to all the attendees that soon we're also going to start the Q&A part of this webinar. So if you still have some questions, please feel free to upload them on the Q&A box. And also the ones that are answered already in the Q&A box, you also can like and upvote, saying that you support this question, so then it can also make more engaging, let's say like that. Thank you all the panelists, and we still have some more minutes and some more questions. So I would open now to everybody, to the speakers and to the invited panelists. One big question: who owns youth goals? To whom do they belong? And just let me know who else would like to answer this. Martin, Lauri, Anina, or any of the 3 panelists that were invited now, and just unmute yourself and please try to answer.
I can start quickly, because also probably Mila, you can remember that we had this big discussion about who owns the youth goals at the European Youth Conference in Vienna. And of course, this is a big question, and I think it's quite easy to answer, basically because everyone owns the youth goals. I mean, they're part of all of us, and but I think it's really important that also what Mila said before is to bring it to regional decision makers, to national decision makers. And I think there was an event organized by the European Youth Forum a few years ago, which was like, what happens at the European level should not stay at the European level. And I think this is really important, that it's not some policy progress thing that just happens in some European sphere, but it's a very important, huge European participatory process, and a lot of young people took part, and also national and regional decision makers have to take that into account and to take the youth goals seriously.
Thank you, Martin. I don't know if somebody else from the panelists would like to add on this.
Yeah, I would like to add something. Of course, they own. We are all the owners, but it should be very good if you can make it a movement. And for that, I think the youth should be enabled to take the lead, to really make the movement in lifestyle and in advocacy.
I can also add something.
Yeah.
I think the ownership, yeah, it's everyone owns them, whoever wants to use them, but it's also like who can relate. Is it relate? Connect them, who feels them more like it's related to their life or whatever. So I think that is also one question that comes out when you think about the ownerships and who is actually. And again, that's the thing that I've been saying a lot, like where are you using them and what is the purpose that you are aiming when you are using them and so on. So I think those also are somehow related to the question about who owns them and who feels them to be related. Is it the right word? Related or feel close about them. So I think it's a bit tricky question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But anyway, thank you for trying to answer as the best as possible. I would say also that there are 11 goals, and I bet that it was also a long process for Martin and for other people also to try to narrow down to this number. And for sure, there was also a reason for that. But now that they're published, there's a website about it, there's some promotional material like Martin was saying, trying also to engage with chocolates and so on. But from your experience, overall, are young people aware of these youth goals? And if yes, how they use them? But if it not, then what do we need to do more to promote them even further? And maybe, I don't know, Laurie, would you like to say something about it? Because you were also using it at local level.
Yes.
Are young people aware of them?
I was thinking this, that I really think that Finnish young people don't really that much know of these goals, because as Anna was talking, that this whole our whole process is in the beginning now, but and well, that's also a difficult answer, because difficult question, sorry, because with those youngsters that I worked with, and we worked with these EU goals, then I'd say that young people don't really that much know this concept or these ideas. But of course, they are maybe more aware of their own rights here in Finland, even though that they kind of some of these goals seems to be like, okay, this is obvious to me. Okay, so like I think they know, but they don't know that they know. Maybe being that kind of a way, like they do, and they respect these goals in their lives, but they don't necessarily recognize that this is a EU youth goal. So I don't know if this makes any sense, but kind of they know, and kind of they just like don't know.
Yeah. It's related with the poll that we also launched, and that's why we also had some feedback
Yes.
from the attendees saying that some actually know, but they don't know how to use it, for example, or they don't know it at all. So I think it's a little bit what you're trying to explain. Thank you, Laurie. Maybe one of the panelists would like also to share.
Yes, I agree with Laurie. I think I'm still a student, and I'm surrounded by students that come from different backgrounds. Some of them are not engaged, let's say, in NGOs or youth organizations. So what I've noticed that when it comes to the youth goals, there are no at European level, that there are no at national level, national youth councils, youth organization. But what I think is lacking is the impact that the youth goals, I mean, the power that the youth goals could have on the grassroots. So the grassroots are not touched, I would say, by the youth goals. And I think this is somehow both the responsibility of youth organization, but also for the educational system to provide them with this context in which they could learn about the youth goals. So there are like that two sides, and of course we should, as a youth organization, try to come up with some measures to make sure that all the young people know about the youth goals.
Thank you so much, Adrian. And also there's also some answers actually on the chat from the people that are participating. Thank you so much for your engagement, and please, yes, keep using the chat for that. because more ideas can be shared also. I don't know if any other panelists would like also to complement a little bit on this about if youth are aware of the youth goals and what else is needed to be done in order to promote it even further.
Can I add quickly something?
Yeah.
So when it comes to this awareness, whether young people are aware of the youth goals or not, I could say it's not enough. So we should definitely pay more attention, all of us, literally, whoever we are and whatever we do, we should definitely pay attention to promoting and disseminating the youth goals much more than we are currently doing. And I think that's going to happen alongside the implementation of the new youth strategy and the Erasmus Plus program, et cetera, But also, when I think about the local young people I usually work with and whether they are aware of the youth goals, I don't think they are. But I do think that they are even not aware of the connection. I mean, they understand the problems, they understand the issues that the youth goals encounter, but they don't know that it's connected to the existence of the youth goals. So we kind of need to bridge that gap between what young people know and care about and advocate for and what the youth goals stand for in our activities, in whatever we do as youth workers.
I saw Martin nodding, agreeing a little bit, maybe it was to compliment. And if I understood correct, is also a way of trying to use youth goals like almost as a flag that can support what you are actually standing for and trying to defend. Yeah, Martin?
Yeah, I would completely agree with what Mila and Adrian before said. So, and as the Austrian National Youth Council, we are an umbrella organization for a lot of youth organizations in Austria, and kind of one. And what we see is that more and more youth organizations are using the youth goals for their events, which is great, and which starts the process that more young people are aware of them. And I think also what Adrian said before is like that the youth goals really are a foundation of, I'm not sure, Adrian, how you said it correctly, but they're like a foundation to utilize that voices of young people are heard better in our society. And I think that there is a lot of work to be done, and but there is quite a good foundation for it already there.
Thank you, Martin. Maybe I would ask also Monique, since you are also more engaging at the local level, and we are talking a lot about promoting even further local level. How do you see this? How do you see what other measures we should have to maybe promote more the youth goals at the local level, with also having in account your experience?
Yeah, to give you an idea of the action the youngsters took on the global goals, they organized a global goals rap challenge. So by making raps on the global goals and sharing them by Facebook and YouTube, and find the winner of the rap challenge locally, nationally, and internationally in that way, they reached, of course, their friends and their family. So this is when you don't think about it yourself, but ask youngsters how to promote them with them together, how they should do it themselves. And in an easy way, by social media, without big budgets, you can achieve a lot in this way.
So basically giving the power back to the young people. I think it's also a bit in line with also like what Ian and Anina shared about trying to involve the youngsters and trying to connect more with their reality, bringing also their ideas and innovations. Very good. Thank you so much, Monique, for that also input. We are almost also finishing this part of the panel. Any of the speakers or panelists would like to add something more before we pass on to the Q&A part? No? Okay, I see a lot of nodding, saying no. That's great. So thank you so much for the panelists for joining us and sharing your experience. It really enriched this webinar. And I hope you could stay still as an attendee now, back to the role of just participating. And for sure, also, if you have more information about your projects and about yourself and about what you share here with us, please also use the chat for that, so other participants can also get to know you even better more. Thank you so much. We're going to start now then the session about Q&A. There was already some questions answered in written format. But now we're also going to try to see the ones that actually were not even answered or possible to answer, or that were highlighted as important now for our specialists, speakers can address a little bit. Now we'll start maybe with one first question about how can the youth workers foster youth goal in a digital way? And I think also, especially with this current situation, it's a very pertinent question. So Anina, Martin, or Lauri, which one would you like to answer this part? How can the youth workers foster youth goal in a digital way? I see all the three thinking a little bit, reflecting.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, it's good that if you have the materials in digital format, that helps in the beginning, that you can find them easily, and then. But I guess it's quite a relevant question because we don't know how the world will be. So I don't have any answer for that. I think at least what we have planned so far, it all needs a bit interactive way of being, and I don't know if that's something that we need to think that how it's easily transformed webinars and so on. So I don't really have any concrete answers for that.
Okay, thank you, Anina. And you, Martin?
Yeah, it's we just started, or we are just in the progress of starting a project with youth workers. How, I mean, the basic idea was that we create methods. We have like a toolbox at the Austrian National Youth Councils with tools, with non-formal tools, how to talk about Europe, and how also to integrate the youth goals in non-formal learning methods. But we started to work together with youth workers on methods how to use them in open youth work. And just a few days ago, we decided that because of the ongoing situation, we need to think about more online tools, but now it's too early that I have any. Maybe I can share them afterwards when we have some good ideas with the results of the webinar.
Thank you so much. Maybe this webinar is also a way of promoting more in a digital way. So then I will pass maybe to another question. Maybe Martin, I think this is more related also with you, or possibly that you have better the answer. Are the youth goals related with sustainable development goals? And if yes, how?
I mean, they're tackling different areas. The European youth goals are tackling really Europe, the European Union. The SDGs work on a global scale. But of course, when the idea for the youth goals came up, the SDGs were a benchmark, or of course we had a look at them when we were talking about icons, etc. But in Austria, we tried to link the SDGs and the youth goals. So we work together with representatives of our ministry, and we had a look at it and decided how to interlink the youth goals and the SDGs. So when we have events, we always try to promote both of them. But yeah, I hope this answers the question.
Yeah, pretty good. And then I would say a follow-up question maybe on that. How to connect the youth goals and the sustainable development goals in small local communities, for example, in south of Europe, south of Italy. Do you have any strategy or suggestion about it? And this can be open also to Anina and Lauri.
So could you just...
How to connect the youth goals and the sustainable development goals in the small local community? If it makes sense even to connect them, or...
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it's two different things to talk about, but the content-wise, of course, we're talking about same issues because those issues are on a global scale, and the sub-goals and ways to solve these issues are working at the same version. So I think, yeah, to choose the right methods to talk about the use goals and the SDGs and to link them together. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Lauri or Anine have some experience. I don't know if you also use the Sustainable Development Goals on the work that you were doing also with young people.
No, not really. We were concentrating on the youth goals with this project, but if the starting point for us was when we choose the target group to be youth workers, the main idea was that we wanted to youth workers and NGOs and also municipality level to see the youth goals and maybe add things from there to their own strategies and future plans and so on. So that was the idea, so that when they are thinking how they will run the project or how they will plan the services for young people and so on, so they could have some elements also from the European youth policy. So I think that it's very wise to connect them to the local plans.
And with your experience, did you find that it's easier, this connection, and people are able to relate it easily?
I would say now I'm talking about in a youth field. If I'm thinking about the municipality youth workers that are a big part of Finnish youth workers, that they are working under the municipalities, departments. So I would say that our national youth policy and the things that we have in youth goals, they are very much linked. So I think it was quite easy, I would say, and I know that some of the biggest cities has tried it, the tool that we made, and then use the youth goals and information and content from there in their own plans. So I think they go hand by hand, but I'm pretty sure that this really varies and depends on where are you coming from and what are your realities with the national youth policies and so on. But in Finland, it does work.
Okay, thank you so much, Anina. I see Lauri also agreeing with this. So.
Yeah, I think that Anina is talking very, very, very much sense, and she knows more of these patterns than I do. But yeah, I totally agree, Anina and Martin.
Thank you. One question that is being voted by the participants also in the Q&A box. It's how will the new Erasmus Plus program address dissemination but also achievement implementation of the youth goals? So I don't know if any of you has already some guidelines or directions about the new program and how this will be connected or not. I can make the question again. How will the new Erasmus Plus program address dissemination but also achievement or / implementation of the youth goals? I mean, maybe you have any news about the new program or have any information, or even if this is putting on the table as a plan.
Yes, I can luckily say that I work mainly for the European Solidarity Corps, so I don't know, of course I know something what's going on there, and I've seen the drafts obviously, but I can't answer exactly the details and what's in it. But in generally, I feel that the youth participation is always a big part of the program. So in that way, I think it's there, but I don't have any specific details if it's somehow written there or said there in those words that youth goals this and that. I don't know that, so I can't say anything at that point.
It's good. Martin?
I don't know how the new Erasmus Plus program would look like, but I mean, as a practical tip, we make use of the Key Action 3 funding scheme a lot for projects regarding youth goals and disseminating youth goals, and we've been working together with local municipalities, counties. Yeah, that's my practical tip, but I don't know about the new Erasmus Plus program.
But anyway, it seems that you are already using this current program to develop projects related with youth goals. So somehow it is implicit there somehow that you can make projects related directly with youth goals. So yeah, let's see the future and the new program. Also with this current situation, for sure, there's going to be also some adaptations and changes, and it's still being in process of the planning. So for sure, many things will still change. Anyway, thank you, Anina, for your contribution, and also Martin about how you try to use it. There's also some questions related mainly also with practical examples on how to use it. there was one question actually coming also from the Facebook, which is, can fundraising be a tool to promote youth goals? And again, I open to any of you that have experience with this, or just reflect a bit and think about it, if fundraising can be a good tool to promote youth goals.
I mean, in general, I think everything that promotes the youth goals and does not misuse them in some kind of way is a good opportunity. We haven't thought about it, to be honest, and we are using a lot of Erasmus Plus we're using the Erasmus Plus program a lot, and it works really good for us. But yeah, I think it could be a great tool for smaller groups that want to use them and promote them more.
Okay, thank you. Laurie, what do you think about this? Have you have any experience already with fundraising as a tool?
Unfortunately, we don't have that, because where I come from and where I work, we always get our funding and things. If we want to do something, a lot of the city is helping us very much with. So unfortunately, I don't have anything to say to this matter.
No problem. Thank you. Yeah, we have to keep in mind also that our key speakers today, they try to answer as best as possible, also according to their experience and reality. Maybe some questions are not so easy to answer. So I also ask the attendees to be patient on that. And as we mentioned before, we're going to try also to answer some by written format and to be sent later. On chat also, some people are commenting. Just a side note, all the time you use the chat, please click and choose to all panelists and attendees, so everybody can also see what is happening, because some messages that are coming on chat just for the panelists, so the other people that are participating do not see, and it's better if everybody sees so they can also comment. And there's also actually a comment saying that the EU strategy until 2027 refers to the youth goals. So there's already, not exactly with Erasmus+, but already some parts of it on the youth strategy itself. So again, one thing that is coming up a lot on this Q&A is really about practical examples, how to put in practice the youth goals at local level, how to start, any tips and examples of other activities besides the ones that you already shared can be helpful for the attendees.
Martin, are you starting? Okay. Yeah, I can give one example what we did beginning of this year when our tool was ready and the poster were ready. We decided to use the youth goals and the visualizations of the youth goals that it's made as a main topic and theme when we went to promote our European Solidarity Corps and Erasmus+, and the topic was kind of that value and money. Like there is those great values and youth goals, and you can actually get Erasmus and European Solidarity Corps money when you are working for those goals. And we had the huge youth work fair in Finland. It's run by every year, and it collects thousands of youth workers in Finland, and we had our own section there, and the youth goals were big posters on the walls, and we were talking about what it means and what kind of projects you could actually run with the young people, and if you actually work for those goals you can actually apply for money and so on. So for us it was like really practical way to use the goals, show the values behind the programs that we are presenting as a NA. So I think that was, in our point of view, the way to use them. But once again, I don't know where the person who asked the question are coming from and what are the reasons behind there, that what it's needed to promote it. So I think that really affects on how you can actually start to work on it. But as the tip for NA, that's how we did it.
That's very nice, thank you. And Martin, you also wanted to say something before?
Yeah, from what we have used before in the National Youth Council is that we had, and I know that some other youth councils all over Europe are doing it as well. For example, the Youth Council in Cyprus is super active in that field, in the whole youth dialogue field. We used like dialogue ambassadors, which are young people who have been part of the process of the youth dialogue, and they were like active at events or conferences, and we asked them that to be part of the team, to have young people in the team, and they started to talk about youth goals at their schools, at their sports clubs, at the very local level. And this worked very well because we also saw that there is always a Europe-wide consultation in the youth dialogue, and we had more than 3,500 young people attending in the last one, which was a huge step for us as well, and it was really good. We also got feedback from them. We briefed them with methods to use in schools or sports club or wherever. And yeah, that's one example. And the other one is really, for us, it works. We tried out to host events to organize events by ourselves. This is always quite a lot of work to do. You're creating parallel structures to other events that are already existing in the same field. And what we are doing now is to really try to get into existing events, to get the youth goals into existing events. We are trying to work with the federal municipalities or regional events and ask them, okay, there are the youth goals, they are like a result of a participatory process, they're important. Can we come and present them? Can you have some visuals of them there? And we are providing them with everything we have, like postcards, posters, whatever. And this works quite well for us now. Yeah, but I'm happy for any other examples. We're doing, we're now in a Key Action 2 program. No, it's not program. It's
strategic partnership.
Yeah, in a strategic partnership, in a project. And we're working together with 5 other youth councils on measures for the youth goals. And within those 5 youth councils, we've talked a lot about how to implement the youth goals in our national realities. And we saw that the national realities are quite different. And so it's quite difficult to have this one perfect example that will work everywhere. So it's a bit of a try and error thing, but any tips are very welcome and helpful.
Thank you, Martin. Lori, something to add?
Yes, yeah, and then I would like just to think from where I come from, where I work with young people every day and with my colleagues. Then I'm a huge fan of these, like Martin said, and the kind of visual cards and posters that we've made. So I think that is very good way to start the conversation about the youth goals, if you like to do it easily, like you can always bring with that material that things up. Maybe that's something, because I think that I'm talking about with working with young people, that they also get easily interested about when you just mention these things, like, did you know that we have these youth goals? Like, what are youth goals? And then we can open a discussion about. So maybe that's some way to also start how to use and how to present youth goals if you're missing that kind of thing. So use the material. I think they are very nice, and the visual thing are always like better than 100 words. Like you can always have some ideas when you watch something that's visualized. So I think that's very good and effective way.
Thank you, Lori. And just a side note again, just to remind the attendees, people that are participating, please use the chat to share discussions, ideas, links, and so on. But the Q&A box, please just keep it short and just with questions that are important to be answered during this webinar, or after in the written format. To also avoid some confusing, so chat for discussion, sharing ideas, links and everything, Q&A box just for questions. Martin, you wanted to add something before?
Yeah, just because I saw one question that popped up in the Q&A right now, which is about can we literally have space and participation for all in the digital world? It's about the use goal for space and participation, and I think that's a really important use goal, and also the next cycle of the youth dialogue will be focusing on that use goal. So from July on, the next 18 months, in the process of the EU Youth Dialogue, we will be talking about this specific use goal. And I think that may have helped also what we've been talking before, to create like digital tools, how to spread the use goals.
That's a very good point, and thank you for highlighting also that question, but also following a bit that question. And due to the current situation and that a lot of things are moving digitally and online, there's still also some concern because it's still not inclusive in the sense that not everybody's got access to digital tools or to online tools. So in that way, the follow-up of that question is also, can we literally have space and participation for all the digital world, but having in consideration that these limitations and that actually maybe it's not so inclusive? And if so, is it possible to have digital and non-digital? I don't know if one of you want to answer a bit this part or reflect a bit on how inclusive it is, this digital world and the space and participation for all, this goal.
We've been thinking about that a lot in the last couple of days, also for a project proposal. And to be honest, we haven't been working a lot with digital tools before. So I mean, we use like also the Austrian Youth Council and the team. And so this is a learning process for all of us. And we're thinking about really trying out to find good solutions. I think it can be both, or it should be both for sure. It will never be just digital, and but we see that more and more things are possible with the digital way. Still, we really have to be aware that we are excluding people from processes, and we've seen in Austria really good examples of open youth work, which was done online after the Corona crisis hit. But we also see that young people really want to have back their analog spaces, and I think this will be a longer discussion and an ongoing discussion, how we will find the right balance between digital tools, which are as inclusive as possible, but also to defend the civil society places that are really important for a functioning society.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And in Lori, I don't know, maybe from the Finnish reality, how do you see this perspective? Do you think it's really inclusive, these digital tools? What measures can we take?
Well, I think that this situation, what we are facing at the moment with the COVID and everything goes to the digital format, it makes it more visible that things are not equal for everyone. I think that the problem has been there, no matter which part of the world you're staying, and even if we think maybe that Finland is like a high technology country and so on, but still I would say that this situation has made it just more visible that there is obstacles to participate, and they can be digital, or they can be that you live in a remote areas or whatever. So I think this will be a very important topic in the future when we are talking about the equal ways of participation, definitely.
I agree, Annina, and I think that when the coronavirus situation started, first thing that, like you said, Annina, everything went to digital, and I've been sensing that some of youngsters have been struggling with isolation feeling. You know, even though we meet them online every day, and we do stuff like normally every day, but still I see a very, it's very healthy to find, like Martin was talking, the balance between digitality and what things can be done in face to face with people, and yeah, a big question. And I think also there is a lot of, you know, yes, everybody doesn't have that much money to buy fancy tools, digital tools to communicate all the time. So it is, yeah, it's a big question, I think also.
Yeah, and for sure now, of course, with this situation, it pushes a little bit more further for this to happen. And I believe that everybody's trying to adapt as fast as possible, and then raising, of course, more concerns now. I think it's more trending now, this concern about, is it digital tools inclusive and how to address this. But it's something that probably it was not so much in thought before, but now it's being pushed. Anyway, we are almost finishing our webinar, and so I will select one more question for you to try to answer before we also close. And maybe it's a bit, again, related with European programs, and actually this question comes also from Facebook, which is there any plan to advocacy the youth goals for the new programs? And when we say new programs, not Erasmus Plus, but also European Solidarity Corps and any other European programs that you may know. So I would address for the three of you. How do you feel about this advocating the youth goals, and how do you feel that it's being advocated also for the new EU programs or not?
I would say that the things that you can find from the youth goals and the topics of the youth goals are quite visible in the program. Like there is new things coming which you can connect easily to the youth goals. So in that way, I think the program, both programs are very much linked to the youth goals. I have this feeling, like it's been so far already so, but I think in the future even more. I think those things that young people have said aloud that are important to them are really visible in the program. And I would say, like, one example is the green traveling rule, which is there now, and really concrete, nice examples that the voice is heard. That's the feeling I have already now, and I think it will continue also in a future program. So good stuff.
Thank you, Anina. Martin, you wanted to add something? No.
I would completely agree, and I see that the different actors and stakeholders are doing advocacy work for the youth goals, for example, the European Youth Forum, and I think it's important that a lot of stakeholders are pushing for it, but I think in the next program, I hope and I expect that the youth goals will be good interlinked.
For sure they will, because if they are also part of the European Youth Strategy for the next years, we hope that will happen. I would say thank you so much for all your answers, for all your contributions, and for your participation. It was lovely to have you, and your experience is really an added value. And thank you also for all the attendees that also are commenting on chat and also suggesting ideas, sharing links. That's also very important. From our side, we are finishing. And I will pass maybe just to Georg. And of course, thank you also to Siri for the graphic recording, which also is going to be available. And you can find a resume of everything that was happening during this long 2 hours, maybe. A little bit about everything that happened with the panelists, with the key speakers, with all the team involved. And then I will pass maybe to Georg to present what will happen next. What are the next webinars?
Thank you very much, Sergio. Really enjoyed this conversation now, and also all the questions. I was really busy answering a lot of them. If you also enjoyed this session, and if you want to have more, we offer more. There is more coming up, and one event that you can also find on our Facebook promoted in the next days will be an online ceremony for Salto PI Awards. We have selected, we have shortlisted 12 very interesting projects and will introduce them in this online ceremony and then hand over in this virtual setting and surrounding the awards. 1 week later, we have the next webinar coming up. It's called Participation and Information Inspirational Practices. This is also a chance to dive deeper into project examples and discuss with us what you can learn from those specific 2 examples. Early June, there's the final webinar coming up from our session promoting youth participation. And last but not least, I have mentioned a few times already in the introduction the possibility to follow our participation pool. Open the web page participationpool.eu and you will find a lot of inspirational materials, including in a few days a recording of this session today. Thank you very much. And as the next point, we have a poll, I think, and I hand over to introduce the poll to Sergio.
Yeah, thank you so much, Georg. I would suggest also Siri to please share again the screen so we can have a last look at the graphic recording to make an overview of everything. While Kadri will launch also a poll just to have a little bit about feedback, how it was with this webinar and how much did you enjoy it or not to attend this webinar. From my side, thank you so much for everybody for attending. Thank you, Kadri, Georgi, for putting this up. Thank you, Lika and Kelly, for all the support also with the chat, Facebook, and so on. Thank you so much, Laurie, Martin, and Nina for joining for this Youth Goals webinar, which was very informative. And I hope to see you all soon in the next webinar, at least.
So here, as panelists, we already have the privilege to look into your feedback. We see the numbers coming in. By now, all the 100% have voted, and we are ready to share the results with you, I think, now.
Yeah, majority.
Thank you also very much for this very great feedback.
Very nice. So 36% say support, 48% like it, 15% say quite okay, 1% say have seen better, and just 1% this one wasn't for me. Anyway, thank you so much for also your input and feedback. This helps us also to grow and to keep improving our webinars. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Bye.